I remember the clink of silverware before my mother spoke, the kind of sound that usually follows bad news. It was a Sunday evening, one of those family dinners that felt more like obligations than bonding. The air smelled of garlic bread and tension. My mother had insisted we all come, me, my younger sister Lily, and my stepfather, Charles. I'd been paying for nearly everything since Dad passed away: rent, utilities, groceries, even Lily's college tuition when Mom forgot to send the check. But I didn't mind. I had a good job in marketing, and I thought helping my family was what love looked like. That night, I was wrong. "Emily," my mom began, her tone way too soft, like she was rehearsing compassion, "we've been talking, and we think Lily deserves a bit more help around here." I looked up from my plate. More help? Lily, dressed in her new designer sweater, one I knew she couldn't afford, smirked like she'd been waiting for this moment. Mom continued, "You've done a lot for us, sweetheart, but Lily's been struggling. She's trying to find her purpose, and she needs a cushion. We were hoping you'd help her out with a few expenses. Maybe pay her car insurance, or help with the new apartment deposit." I blinked, stunned. "I already am helping. I paid for her last semester, Mom." Lily rolled her eyes. "That was months ago. Things change." It wasn't what they said that hurt most, it was how normal they acted while saying it, as if I were an ATM with feelings attached. I put my fork down, forcing my voice to stay even. "You know I've been covering bills for years. I just don't think I can take on more." Mom's smile froze. "Emily, you make good money." Lily's still finding herself. And there it was, the phrase I'd heard my entire life. Lily's still finding herself. It was the family's permanent excuse for her mistakes. When she crashed my car at 19. She's still finding herself. When did she drop out of college the first time? She's still finding herself. When she maxed out my credit card buying business supplies? She's still finding herself. But when I worked late nights, saved for a down payment, or quietly covered their debts, no one called that finding myself. It was just what I was supposed to do. The dinner spiraled after that. Lily accused me of being selfish. Mom said I was being cold. Charles just sat there, swirling his wine like the villain in a cheap drama. Finally, I snapped. "Do you even hear yourselves? I've been keeping this family afloat while you act like I'm the problem. I'm not a bank, Mom. I'm your daughter." Mom's face hardened. "And Lily's my daughter too. She deserves just as much support, if not more. You've always had it easier." That line hit me like ice water. Easier. I wanted to laugh. I'd been working since I was 16. I'd helped pay the mortgage after Dad died. I'd skipped vacations, delayed dating, even missed a few therapy appointments because the family needed me. And my sister, who had everything handed to her, was the one who deserved more? I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. "You know what? Maybe you're right. Lily deserves more. But it won't be from me." Mom's lips parted in disbelief. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm done paying for people who don't respect me." Then I walked out, heart pounding, tears threatening, but also, for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of something new. Freedom. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. No calls, no texts, just the occasional guilt-trap voicemail from Mom. "Emily, you're overreacting. Family helps family. Your sister's been crying all week. You really hurt her. We raised you better than this." I didn't reply. Instead, I threw myself into work, started meal prepping, and spent evenings sitting on my balcony with a glass of wine, something I hadn't done in forever. It felt good, like I was learning how to breathe again. But peace never lasts long in my family. A few weeks later, I came home to find Lily sitting on my doorstep, arms crossed, sunglasses perched dramatically on her head. "I need to stay here," she said flatly. "Just for a few weeks. My lease fell through." I sighed. "Lily, I don't think that's a good idea." "Come on, Em. You have space. You're my sister." She knew exactly what she was doing, using the word sister like a magic spell to erase the damage she'd caused. "I'm sorry," I said, firm but calm. "I think you need to figure this out on your own." She scoffed. "Wow. You really think you're better than us, don't you?" I didn't answer. She stormed off, muttering something about me being heartless. That word used to crush me. This time, it didn't. A month later, I learned Lily moved back home. And apparently, Mom and Charles were telling everyone I'd abandoned the family. Neighbors. Church friends. Even Aunt Beth, who texted me, "Honey, you should apologize to your mom. She's heartbroken." Heartbroken? She broke me a long time ago. Still, part of me ached. I wanted to believe things could get better, that if I just explained my side, they'd finally see me. So I agreed to another dinner. Just one more chance to clear the air. When I arrived, the table was already set, too perfectly. Mom's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. I'm glad you came, she said sweetly. We just want to move past all this. For a moment, I almost believed her. Then she slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a family expense agreement. A literal contract stating I'd cover half their mortgage and Lily's utilities, in the spirit of fairness. I felt my stomach drop. You can't be serious. Charles cleared his throat. It's just to keep things organized. I looked at Lily. She was grinning. That's when it hit me, they weren't trying to fix anything. They were trying to own me. I stood up, the paper trembling in my hands. You know what, Mom? I used to think if I just gave enough, you'd finally love me the way you love her. But I get it now, you only love what you can take from me. And then, I tore the paper in half. Mom gasped. Lily cursed. Charles muttered something about disrespect. I just smiled through the tears burning my eyes. Dinner's over. That night, I packed away the last few photos of my family. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Sometimes you have to lose the version of family you grew up with to find the version of yourself that was buried underneath. And for the first time in my adult life, I went to sleep without feeling like I owed anyone anything. The first week after that dinner, I didn't cry. That's what surprised me most. I thought there'd be tears, that I'd crumble under guilt or loneliness. But instead, there was just quiet. And quiet, I learned, can be beautiful. I started filling my evenings with things that made me feel alive again, long walks after work, painting old furniture, even learning to make sourdough bread like one of those people on YouTube who somehow have their life together. It was strange, though, how silence carried echoes. I'd be stirring dough or scrolling through playlists when I'd suddenly hear Mom's voice in my head, "You've always had it easier, Emily." The more I thought about it, the more I realized how false that was. Having boundaries didn't make me lucky, it made me brave. Still, I missed them. Not the arguments or manipulation, but the idea of family. The safety I used to imagine they provided. A few weeks later, a text popped up from an unknown number. "Hey Em, it's Lily. Can we talk?" For a moment, I hesitated. Then I typed, "Sure. Coffee?" We met at a cafe near the university. She looked different, tired, makeup smudged, but still carrying that familiar defiance. So, I started carefully, "How's everything at home?" Lily sighed, stirring her latte. "Mom's mad you cut them off. She says she might have to sell the house if you don't help." I bit my lip. "She said that?" "Yeah. She blames me, though. Says if I hadn't needed so much help, you wouldn't have walked out." Her words landed like a quiet punch. For once, she wasn't smirking. She looked almost lost. "Lily," I said softly, "you're not the reason I walked out. I just couldn't keep fixing everyone else's mistakes. You need to learn that too." She looked down, voice small. "You make it sound easy. It's not. But it's the only way out." For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then she leaned back and gave a shaky laugh. "You always were the strong one." It wasn't a compliment. It was an accusation dressed as admiration. Over the next few weeks, she started visiting more often. Sometimes, for coffee, just to sit on my balcony and vent about Mom. Apparently, Mom had been spiraling, telling everyone I'd turned selfish, but also complaining that the bills were piling up without Emily's help. It was weird being both the villain and the missing hero. Then, one Sunday morning, Lily showed up again, this time with tears streaking her face. "Mom had a fall," she said, breathless. "She's okay, but she twisted her ankle. She wants to see you." My stomach twisted. Every logical part of me screamed, "Don't go." But something softer, something human, won out. When I got there, the house looked smaller. Maybe it was the peeling paint or the way the front garden had turned wild without me paying for the landscaper. Mom was sitting on the couch, foot in a brace, wrapped in a blanket that used to belong to Dad. "Hi, Mom," I said quietly. She looked up, her eyes soft but tired. "You came." "Of course I did." She smiled faintly. "Lily said you'd moved on." I guess she was wrong. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I let it slide. We talked for an hour, mostly surface-level things. Weather. Work. Lily's new job attempt. Then Mom's voice shifted. "Emily, I know things got tense. I might have said some things I shouldn't have." I waited. "But you have to understand, I was only trying to be fair. You've always been capable, and Lily, she needs more help. That's all." It was the same justification, just softened by injury. I felt the old anger flicker, but I stayed calm. "Mom, fairness doesn't mean taking from one child to give to another. It means loving us equally." She looked away, silent. Then, quietly, she said, "You remind me of your father." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get. After that visit, something strange happened. Mom didn't ask for money again. She started calling once a week, but to talk, not to guilt trip. And Lily? She actually got a part-time job. It wasn't perfect, but it felt better. Like a fragile peace treaty. until I found out the truth. One evening, I got a letter from the bank. It wasn't addressed to me, but it had been sent to my old mailing address, the family home. Curious, I opened it. It was a notice of default on the mortgage. Apparently, Mom had stopped paying months ago. I called her immediately. "Mom, what's going on?" She sighed. "It's fine, Emily. The bank always sends those when payments are delayed. We're working it out." "Delayed?" I said. "You mean unpaid, right?" There was a pause. Then she snapped, "I knew you'd overreact. You think I can't handle anything without you?" My chest tightened. "You said you were fine." "Well, maybe I wasn't. But we wouldn't be in this mess if you hadn't walked out when we needed you most." There it was, the guilt grenade, thrown right back at me. "Mom," I said carefully, "I didn't walk out. I stopped being used. There's a difference." She hung up. A week later, Lily texted. "Mom might lose the house. She's freaking out. Please come." I didn't want to. But that house, despite everything, was still my childhood home. The smell of cinnamon, the sound of rain on the windows, Dad's framed photo by the staircase. It held too many memories to ignore. When I arrived, Mom was pacing the kitchen, paperwork spread everywhere. Lily sat silently at the table, eyes red. Mom looked up. "If you're here to lecture me, don't bother. I'm here to help," I said softly, "but not by writing a check." Her glare softened slightly. "Then what do you want?" "To fix what's broken. Not just the bills." We spent that evening talking, really talking, for the first time in years. I helped her organize payments, call the bank, and negotiate a new plan. It wasn't easy. She hated admitting mistakes. I hated feeling responsible again. But something shifted. At one point, she whispered, "You shouldn't have to be the parent." I looked at her, stunned. That was it, the sentence I'd been waiting my whole life to hear. "I just wanted you to see me, Mom," I said quietly. "Not the money. Me." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I see you now, Emily." A few days later, the house was safe. The crisis was over. But I knew something deeper had changed. I wasn't coming back to being the good daughter. I wasn't taking over again. I'd helped because it was my choice, not my obligation. Lily hugged me before I left. "You really did save us," she said. I smiled faintly. "No, Lily. I just stopped saving you the wrong way." Driving home that night, I thought about Dad. About how he'd always said, strength doesn't mean holding everything up, it means knowing when to put things down. For years, I thought I was strong because I carried my family. But now I understood, I was strong because I finally let go. That week, I started writing again, something I hadn't done since college. Just journal entries at first. Then small essays. Then a blog. I wrote about boundaries, guilt, and rediscovering yourself after family burnout. It wasn't revenge, it was release. And slowly, readers found me. One night, I checked my email and saw a message from a small podcast host. "Your story about family and boundaries hit home. Would you like to share it on our show?" I almost said no. Then I thought about that girl who once tore up a contract at her mother's table, and said yes, the studio wasn't what I expected. It wasn't glamorous or fancy, just a small downtown space with scuffed hardwood floors, mismatched chairs, and a microphone that looked older than I was. Still, when I sat down in front of it, my hands trembled. The host, a woman named Claire, smiled warmly. "Don't worry, Emily. Just talk like you're telling a friend your story. The mic will forget everything you say, but the world might not." I laughed nervously. "No pressure, huh?" She grinned. "Only if you want there to be." When the recording light blinked on, I took a deep breath. And for the first time, I told the truth, every piece of it. I talked about being the responsible one, the fixer, the one who cleaned up everyone else's messes. I talked about the invisible weight of being the strong daughter, the resentment that comes when love turns into obligation. I told them about the dinner, the words that changed everything. "Your sister deserves more." I explained how that single sentence opened a wound I didn't even know I still had. How it made me realize I'd been trying to earn love by overgiving. And then, I told them about what came after, how I tore the family contract apart. How I found peace in silence. How I stopped being the savior in a story that never wanted to save me. When I finished, there was a long, heavy pause. Claire looked at me like she was seeing something sacred. "Emily," she said softly, "you just said what millions of people are afraid to admit." I didn't think much about it after that. The episode aired a few days later, and I went back to my routine, work, long walks, dinners alone that didn't feel lonely anymore. Then my phone started buzzing. Notifications. Dozens. Then hundreds. The episode had gone viral. People from all over were sharing it. Women, men, even older parents who said they'd finally realized how much pressure they'd put on their own responsible child. There were comments like, "This story broke me and healed me at the same time." I am Emily. I just didn't know how to say it. She didn't just find her voice, she gave us all permission to find ours. It was surreal. I'd spent my life invisible, and suddenly, people saw me, not for what I gave, but for who I was. A week later, Claire called again. Emily, she said, excitement bubbling through the phone, a national outlet wants to feature your story. They want to turn it into a segment on resilience and boundaries. You up for it? I hesitated. My first instinct was to hide, old habits die hard. But then I thought about the girl I used to be, sitting at that dinner table, trembling with anger and sadness, tearing a contract in half just to prove she mattered. Yeah, I said finally. I'm up for it. The interview aired 2 weeks later. It wasn't sensational or dramatic, just honest. They showed clips of me sitting by the window of my apartment, coffee mug in hand, talking about what it means to love your family but still choose yourself. And then something unexpected happened. Mom called. It was late evening. I was folding laundry when her name appeared on my phone. For a moment, I just stared at it, my heart racing. Finally, I answered. Hi, Mom. Her voice was quiet. I saw your interview. Oh. You looked happy. I am, I said, truthfully. There was a pause. Then she sighed. You made me look like a terrible mother. The word stung, but I stayed calm. That wasn't the point. I know, she said softly. It's just hard to hear the truth when it doesn't paint you kindly. I waited, not sure what to say. Then her voice cracked. I didn't realize how much I leaned on you, Emily. You were always so capable. I thought that meant you didn't need care, too. That was it, the apology I never thought I'd hear. I just wanted to be your daughter, I whispered. And you always were, she said. I just forgot how to treat you like one. A few days later, a package arrived. It was from my mom. Inside was an old manila envelope. For a moment, I froze, thinking it might be another agreement or guilt-laden letter. But when I opened it, I found something else. It was the torn family contract, the one I'd ripped in half that night. Except now, taped together carefully. Across the top, written in thick black marker, were 2 words, void. Forever. My throat tightened. It wasn't just paper. It was a peace offering. A surrender. A mother's way of saying, I finally get it. That night, I sat on my balcony again, just like I had those first nights after leaving. The city hummed softly below, and the air smelled like jasmine and rain. I thought about Lily, about Mom, about the endless cycle of guilt and love that had once defined my life. And then I thought about how it finally ended, with honesty, not hate. Weeks turned into months, and life felt lighter. The podcast invitation had opened doors I never expected. I started speaking at small workshops and events about emotional boundaries, burnout, and family healing. It wasn't about telling people to walk away, it was about showing them they could still love their families without losing themselves. One evening, after a talk in Chicago, a young woman came up to me in tears. My mom always said I was selfish for moving out, she said. But listening to you made me realize I wasn't selfish. I was saving myself. I hugged her. That's exactly what I needed to hear, too. Not long after, I got an email from Lily. The subject line read, "Thank you. Hey Em, I've been listening to your podcast stuff. I didn't get it before, but I do now. I'm working full-time, paying my own bills. It's not easy, but it feels good. Mom's been better, too. She still talks about you all the time, mostly proud stuff now. Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks. For saying no when you did. It made me grow up." I sat there for a long time, rereading her message, tears blurring the screen. Sometimes love looks like saying yes. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. A few months later, I was invited to give a TED-style talk, Finding Yourself When Family Doesn't See You. It was surreal standing under the stage lights, hundreds of faces watching. My palms were sweating, my heart pounding. But when I spoke, the words flowed like they'd been waiting for this moment. I used to think love meant giving everything you had, I began. But I learned that love without boundaries isn't love, it's survival. And survival isn't living. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. I told them about my mom's words, "Your sister deserves more," and how they used to define me. But what I've learned, I said, voice steady, is that you can't make someone see your worth by bleeding for them. Sometimes the only way to be seen is to stop shrinking. When I finished, the crowd stood. Applause. Tears. Smiles. I looked up, just for a second, imagining Dad somewhere in that audience. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was performing for approval. I was speaking for myself. Later that night, as I walked off stage, Claire hugged me. "You know this one's going to go viral, right?" I smiled. "That's not why I did it." "I know," she said. "That's why it will." A few days later, the clip hit 10 million views. People stitched it, quoted it, made art and journals from my lines. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's survival. You can't make someone see your worth by bleeding for them. My inbox is filled with stories, people leaving toxic relationships, standing up to controlling families, forgiving themselves for walking away. It was overwhelming. Beautiful. Healing. And then, one comment stopped me in my tracks. It was from an account named m.m_1959. My mother's initials. For years, I thought my oldest daughter was the strong one. Now I know she was the hurting one. I'm proud of her. Truly. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because finally, she'd said everything I'd ever needed to hear. That night, I framed the void contract and hung it above my writing desk. Not as a reminder of pain, but as proof of peace. It sat beside a sticky note that said 3 simple words, never oh love. Months later, I got a text from Lily with a picture attached, Mom smiling at a family dinner table, empty chair beside her. She says she's saving you a seat. No expectations this time. For once, I didn't feel dread. I felt ready. Maybe family doesn't always mean forgiveness or forgetting. Maybe it means learning to meet again, as equals, not as givers and takers. I smiled and texted back, tell her I'll bring dessert. That weekend, I went home. Same kitchen, same smells, same mismatched plates. But something invisible had changed. Mom hugged me like she meant it. Lily joked without bitterness. And I laughed, freely, fully, like the sound belonged in that house again. Dinner ended with coffee and silence. Not the heavy silence of resentment, but the peaceful one that comes after understanding. Mom reached across the table, squeezing my hand. I really am proud of you, Em. I smiled. I know. Later that night, as I drove back to my apartment, the city lights blurred like stars in motion. I thought about how far I'd come, from the girl who paid all the bills, hoping for love, to the woman who built her own peace and permitted others to do the same. My story wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my worth, and realizing that I never had to buy it in the first place. And as the night stretched ahead, I whispered a silent promise to myself, never again will I confuse being needed with being loved.